The trading station called Prime floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower. Ships came and went every hour. Aliens of many kinds walked through its long hallways. Some had scales, some had fur, some had shells like insects. They all came here to trade, to talk, and to make money. On this day, a small human ship arrived at the docking bay. It was old and scratched, nothing special to look at. The dock workers barely gave it a second glance. Human ships were rare in this part of space, but not unheard of. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. A young woman stepped out onto the metal floor. Her name was. She was 26 years old with black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore plain clothes, a gray jacket over a white shirt, simple pants, and comfortable shoes. She carried only a small bag over her shoulder. Looked around the busy docking bay with wide eyes. Everything was so different from home. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Strange lights and colors she had never seen before blinked and glowed everywhere. The air smelled like metal and something sweet she could not name. She pulled out a small device from her pocket, a translator her brother had sent her. She put it in her ear, and suddenly all the strange sounds around her became words she could understand. "Move it, soft skin," someone growled behind her. Quickly stepped aside. A large creature covered in blue scales pushed past her, pulling a floating cart full of boxes. It did not look at her again. Did not mind, she was too excited to be upset. This was her first time leaving Earth, her first time seeing aliens, her first time in space. Everything was new and wonderful. She followed the signs toward the main area of the station. Her brother worked here as a translator for the Galactic Commerce Guild. She had not seen him in 2 years. He had left Earth to find better work, and he had found it here, far from home. The main area of the station was even more amazing than the docking bay. It was like a giant city under a glass roof. There were shops and restaurants and places could not even begin to understand. Thousands of aliens walked, crawled, and floated through the wide streets. Noticed that some of them looked at her strangely. Some whispered to each other and pointed. Some moved away from her as she walked past. At first, she thought maybe she had done something wrong, but then she realized they were looking at her because she was human. She knew that humans had a strange reputation in space. Earth was classified as by the galactic government. This meant it was considered extremely dangerous. The gravity was heavy. The weather was violent. The animals were deadly. And the humans who came from this terrible world were seen as dangerous primitives. Thought this was a bit silly. Earth was just home. Yes, there were storms sometimes. Yes, some animals could hurt you, but it was not so bad, at least she did not think so. She found a quiet spot in the common hall and sat down on a bench to wait. Had told her he would meet her here after his shift ended. She had about an hour to wait. Took out a small book from her bag and began to read. It was a children's book. She was a kindergarten teacher back on Earth, and she liked to find new stories for her students. This one was about a little rabbit who got lost in the forest. She was only a few pages in when a shadow fell over her. Looked up. Standing in front of her were 7 aliens. They were tall, with hard shells like beetles and many arms ending in sharp claws. Their eyes were black and shiny. These were the she had read about them on the trip here. They were known as warriors and mercenaries. The one in front, the biggest one, wore armor covered in symbols. He was clearly the leader. His translator made his clicking sounds into words. "What do we have here?" he said. His voice was cold and mocking. "A creature all alone, how sad." Closed her book politely. "Hello," she said with a small smile. "Can I help you with something?" They laughed. It was an ugly sound like rocks grinding together. "It speaks," one of them said. "How cute." "We do not need help from vermin," the leader said. His name was Commander, though did not know this yet. "We came to see what kind of pathetic thing crawled out of that primitive rock you call a planet." Smile faded a little. She did not like the way they were talking about Earth. but she stayed calm. She was always calm. It was one of the things that made her good with children, patience. "I am just waiting for my brother," she said quietly. "I do not want any trouble." Trouble stepped closer. "You think you can cause trouble? You are nothing. A soft, weak little creature. On any real world you would be prey." Did not answer. She looked at with steady eyes. She did not look scared. This seemed to make him angry. "Look at me when I speak to you," he growled. He reached out with one clawed hand and grabbed her wrist. His grip was tight, tight enough to hurt. Did not cry out. She did not pull away. She simply looked at the claw around her wrist, then looked back up at. "Please let go," she said. Her voice was soft, gentle, like she was talking to a child who had done something wrong. "I am asking you once." They found this very funny. They laughed and clicked and slapped their armored sides. "Asking once," repeated. "Or what? What will you do, little prey?" Said nothing. She just looked at him. Somewhere deep in her eyes something flickered, something old, something patient. But did not see it. He only saw a small human woman, soft, weak, harmless. He was wrong. He was very, very wrong. But he did not know that yet. None of them did. They were still laughing, still mocking, still so sure of themselves. They had no idea what was coming. And patient as always, simply waited, was walking fast through the busy hallways of Prime. His shift had ended early, and he was excited to see his little sister. 2 years was a long time. He had missed her smile, her quiet laugh, her terrible jokes about vegetables. But when he turned the corner into the common hall, his excitement turned to ice in his chest. He saw sitting on the bench. He saw the 7 warriors surrounding her. He saw Commander holding her wrist. And he knew, with a sinking feeling in his stomach, that something very bad was about to happen. Not to them. He called out, walking quickly toward the group. He tried to keep his voice calm. "Are you all right?" They turned to look at him. Their black eyes studied him with amusement. Another human, another weak, soft creature from that terrible rock called Earth. Looked at her brother with a gentle smile. "I am fine, Oppa," she said, using the Korean word for older brother. "I asked them to stop. They did not listen." His heart beat faster. He knew what those words meant. He knew his sister. She was the kindest person he had ever met. She cried at sad movies. She picked up worms from the sidewalk and put them in the grass. She had never hurt anyone in her life. But she could. Oh, she could. Commander turned his attention to. "This soft creature belongs to you," he said with a sneer. "Teach it proper respect for its betters. On this station, warriors are not to be looked at by prey." Raised his hand slowly, showing he had no weapons. He spoke in the language he had learned it for his job. His voice was tight with worry. "You need to let her go, right now. I am warning you, not threatening, warning. There is a difference." They found this very funny. Their laughter filled the common hall. Other aliens nearby stopped to watch. Some of them smiled. They enjoyed seeing the primitive humans being put in their place. "Warning us," one of them said. "The prey is warning us." "What will you do?" another one clicked. "Cry at us, bleed on us." His grip tightened on his wrist. She made a small sound, not quite pain, but close to it. Saw her eyes change. The softness was fading. Something else was taking its place. "Please," said quickly. "You do not understand. She is not what she looks like. None of us are. Just let her go and we can all walk away." Laughed in his face. "I understand perfectly. You are weak. She is weak. Your entire species is weak. That is why you come from only the weak would call such a gentle place dangerous." One of the shoved backward. He stumbled but did not fall. Another grabbed other arm and squeezed hard enough to leave bruises. Closed her eyes. Stopped breathing. When opened her eyes again, everything was different. The softness was gone. The gentle kindergarten teacher was gone. What looked out of those dark eyes now was something else entirely. Something that had been shaped by millions of years on a world that was always trying to kill it. I warned you once, she said softly. Her voice had not changed. It was still quiet, still calm, but there was something underneath it now, something cold. That was your chance. Laughed, and now what? You will. He never finished the sentence. Moved, she did not seem to move fast. She seemed to flow like water, like wind, like something that could not be stopped or held. The holding her arm suddenly found himself on the ground. His limb was bent the wrong way. He screamed. The other attacked. Of course they did. They were warriors. They had trained for years. They had killed many enemies. It did not matter. Stepped between them like a dancer. She did not punch or kick. She redirected. She used their own weight against them, a push here, a pull there, a twist that should not be possible. One swung at her with a clawed hand. She was not there anymore. She was behind him, and then he was on the floor with his arm locked in a position that made him scream. Another tried to grab her from behind. She dropped her weight, spun, and somehow he flew over her shoulder and crashed into two of his friends. 4 seconds, that was all it took. In 4 seconds, 6 warriors were on the ground. They were groaning, clicking in pain, trying to understand what had happened. Only Commander was still standing. He had not moved. He was frozen in place, his black eyes wide with something that might have been fear. Brushed some dust off her sleeve. She picked up her small bag from the bench. She straightened her hair. Then she just looked at him. Her face was calm again, gentle again, but her eyes still held that cold thing, that ancient thing from the... That was the first warning, she said softly. Please do not make me give a second one. Said nothing, he could not. His voice had left him. Smiled a small, polite smile and walked past him. She took her brother's arm like nothing had happened. Opa, she said cheerfully, let us go. I am hungry. Is there a good place to eat on the station? Looked at his sister. He looked at the 6 warriors on the ground. He looked at the frozen commander. He looked at the crowd of aliens who had gathered to watch, all of them now silent, all of them staring at the small human woman with new eyes. Yeah, said weakly. Yeah, there is a good place. I will take you there. They walked away together, arm in arm, like a normal brother and sister on a normal day. Behind them, Commander finally found his voice. It came out as a whisper, so quiet that only his fallen warriors could hear it. What was that? He breathed. What is she? None of them had an answer. But in his heart, in the dark place where fear lives, already knew. She was human. And humans were not prey. They never had been. The next morning, everyone on Prime was talking about the human woman. The security cameras had recorded everything. Somehow, the footage had spread across the station's networks. Aliens in restaurants watched it on their screens. Merchants in shops played it again and again. Even the dock workers stopped their jobs to see the small human take down 6 warriors in 4 seconds. 4 seconds. Everyone kept saying those words, 4 seconds. In the medical bay, the 6 warriors were being treated for their injuries. Broken arms, dislocated joints, deep bruises. The doctors had never seen anything like it. The damage was precise, almost artistic. Nothing was permanently destroyed. Everything would heal. But the pain was very, very real. Commander did not go to the medical bay. He was not hurt, not physically, but something inside him was broken all the same. He sat in his quarters and watched the footage over and over. He watched the human woman move. He watched his warriors fall. He watched himself stand there like a frightened child, unable to move, unable to fight. His clan would hear about this. His family would know. A commander frozen in fear by a small human female. The shame was unbearable. There was only one way to wash away such shame. Blood. Began making calls. He contacted old friends, old enemies, anyone who owed him a favor, anyone who hated humans, anyone who wanted easy money. The human woman, he told them, she must pay, she must suffer, and then she must die. meanwhile, knew nothing about any of this. She spent her days exploring the station with happy eyes and a curious heart. Everything amazed her. The alien food, the strange music, the beautiful lights that changed color with the time of day. She took pictures of everything to show her students back home. "Look at this flower," she said to one morning, pointing at a plant in a shop window. "It has 3 colors, 3 colors, Opa, can you imagine?" Smiled, but his eyes were worried. He had heard the rumors. He knew was planning something. He tried to talk to station security, but they were not interested. They were powerful on this station. They brought money and trade. One human woman was not worth making them angry. Said carefully, "Maybe we should change our travel plans. Leave early, take a different route home." Looked at him with surprise. "Why, I am having such a good time." "I am worried about they do not forgive easily. Lost face in front of everyone. He will want revenge." Thought about this for a moment. Then she smiled gently and patted her brother's hand. "Do not worry, Opa. I am sure they learned their lesson. They will not bother us again." Wanted to believe her. He really did. But he had lived among aliens for 2 years now. He knew how they thought. He knew that pride was more important than sense to creatures like. The days passed, made friends. There was a young shopkeeper named who worked in a small store selling books and games from different worlds. They were tall and thin, with long faces and gentle eyes. They were known as peaceful people, more interested in art and learning than fighting. Was nervous around at first. Like everyone else, he had seen the footage, but was so kind, so friendly that he soon forgot to be afraid. She taught him card games from Earth. He taught her games from his. They sat together in his shop and played for hours, laughing at each other's mistakes. "Your hands are so small," said one day, watching her shuffle the cards. "How can such small hands do what you did?" Looked at her hands. They were small, soft, the hands of a kindergarten teacher made for holding children and wiping tears. "I do not like to fight," she said quietly. "I really do not. Back home I teach little children. I help them tie their shoes. I read them stories. That is who I am." "Then why did you fight Was quiet for a long moment. "Because they did not give me a choice," she said finally. "On Earth we have a saying, we do not start fights, but we finish them." Nodded slowly. He did not fully understand. How could he? His world was gentle. His people had never needed to fight for survival, but he could see the truth in his eyes. She was not a violent person. She was just a person who could be violent if she had to be. That night could not sleep. He kept thinking about the way the commander had looked at before they left. There had been hate in those black eyes, cold, burning hate. He got out of bed and walked to the window of his small apartment. The station's artificial night made the lights dim and soft. Somewhere out there, in the maze of metal corridors and alien quarters, was planning. Thought about his grandmother back on Earth. She had survived a terrible war when she was young. She had raised 7 children with nothing but hard work and stubborn will. She had once told a story about a tiger that came to her village. The tiger was hungry, his grandmother had said. It wanted to eat our chickens, but my mother chased it away with nothing but a wooden stick and a loud voice. "Were you not afraid?" Young had asked. His grandmother had smiled. "Of course we were afraid, but the tiger was more afraid. It did not understand creatures that would fight back. Predators never do." Looked out at the station's false stars and wondered if they were like that tiger. Predators who did not understand what it meant to face something that would not run. He hoped they would learn without more pain. But deep in his heart, he knew they would not. They never did. And somewhere in the station, Commander finished making his plans. Tomorrow night, he told himself. Tomorrow night, the human woman would learn what it meant to shame a commander. Tomorrow night she would die. He was sure of it. He was wrong. They came at the darkest hour of the station's artificial night. 17 warriors in full combat armor. Each one carried plasma weapons that could burn through metal. Each one had taken combat drugs that made them faster, stronger, and less afraid. They had trained together for 3 days. They had planned every step. Commander led them himself. He would not hide while others did his work. He would watch the human woman die with his own eyes. He would make it slow. He would make it painful. And then his shame would be washed away. They sealed the residential block where was staying. They cut the power. The emergency lights came on, dim and red, casting strange shadows on the metal walls. Smiled in the darkness. No one was coming to help her. No one would even know until it was over. They moved through the hallway in perfect formation, silent, deadly, professional. When they reached the door, they did not bother knocking. One of the warriors placed an explosive charge on the lock. The door blew open with a shower of sparks. 17 warriors rushed into the room, weapons raised, ready for anything. What they found made them stop. Was sitting in the center of the room, cross-legged, calm. A small cup of tea was in her hands. She was not sleeping. She was not hiding. She was just sitting there in the red emergency light as if she had been waiting for them. As if she had known they were coming. "You came," she said softly. Her voice was quiet, almost sad. "I hoped you would not." Pushed his way to the front of the group. His warriors spread out around the room, surrounding her completely. There was nowhere for her to run, no escape, no help. "No speeches this time," said coldly. "No warnings, just death." Looked at him, her face was calm, too calm. In the red light her eyes seemed to glow. "You misunderstand," she said. She set down her teacup on the floor with a quiet clink. "The first warning was for your safety." She stood up slowly, every warrior in the room tensed. Weapons were aimed at her, claws were ready to strike. "The second warning," continued, her voice still soft, still gentle, "is for everyone who has to watch." She rolled her shoulders, stretched her neck. And something in the room changed. The air became heavy, thick, hard to breathe. It was like being near a fire, but there was no heat. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, but there was no fall. It was fear, pure, ancient fear, the kind that lived in the bones of every creature in the galaxy. The fear of a predator. The warriors felt it first. Their combat drugs could not push it away. Their training could not overcome it. Something deep inside them, older than thought, older than reason, was screaming at them to run. But they were warriors. They did not run. That was their mistake. Moved. This time there was no grace, no gentle redirection. This was something else, something older, something from a world where everything was poison, where everything had claws, where survival was the only law. The first warrior died with his weapon still raised. He never saw her move. She was in front of him, and then she was behind him, and then he was falling. The second and third warriors attacked together. It did not matter, flowed between their claws like water through fingers. Her hands found the weak points in their armor, joints, throat, eyes. They screamed and fell. The room became chaos. Plasma fire lit up the darkness. Warriors shouted orders that no one followed. Bodies crashed into walls. Armor cracked and shattered. Moved through them like a ghost, like a demon, like something from the nightmares of she was everywhere and nowhere. Every attack missed her. Every defense failed against her. 43 seconds, that was all it took. 43 seconds, and 17 warriors were on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were groaning in pain. Some were not moving at all. The room smelled like blood and burnt metal and fear. Only Commander was still awake. He was lying on his back in the center of the room, his armor cracked, his weapons broken. Was kneeling beside him, her face close to his. She was not even breathing hard. "I warned you," she said softly. Her voice was still gentle, still kind. That was the most terrifying part. "I warned you once, but you did not listen." Tried to speak. His translator clicked and stuttered, but no words came out. His voice was gone. His pride was gone. Everything was gone. Stood up, she looked at the fallen warriors around her. There was no joy in her eyes, no anger, just a deep, quiet sadness. They will live, she said, but they will not talk about this, not ever. She walked to the door, was there with station security behind him. They had finally come, too late to help, too late to stop anything. Looked at his sister. She had blood on her hands, not her own. Her clothes were torn, her hair was loose, but her eyes were the same gentle eyes he had always known. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am fine," Opa smiled at him. It was a tired smile, but a real one. "Can we go home now? I miss my students." Behind them, the security officers were entering the room. They stopped when they saw the bodies. They stopped when they saw the damage. One of them made a sound like he was going to be sick. Commander was still lying on his back. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. His mouth was moving, but no sound came out. He would never speak of this night. None of the survivors would. When anyone asked them what happened, they would go silent. Their eyes would become distant. Their voices would disappear. The second warning had left them mute. And across the station, in every bar and shop and ship, the footage from the helmet cameras was already spreading. Classified, restricted, banned. But nothing could stop it. Nothing could contain it. The galaxy was learning what humans really were. And the galaxy was afraid. 3 months later was back on Earth. The morning sun came through the windows of her small classroom. 20 little children sat on colorful mats on the floor, looking up at her with big eyes. She was reading them a story about a friendly dragon who was afraid of butterflies. And the dragon said, read in her gentle voice, "Maybe being afraid is okay. Maybe everyone is afraid of something." "Teacher," one small boy raised his hand, "are you afraid of anything?" Thought about this. She remembered the red emergency lights, the sound of plasma fire, the weight of 17 bodies on her conscience. She remembered the look in Commander's eyes when he finally understood what she was. "Yes," she said with a soft smile, "I am afraid of many things, but I try not to let my fear stop me from being kind." The children nodded seriously, as if this was the most important thing they had ever heard. After class, helped one of the children tie his shoes. Another girl had scraped her knee on the playground and cleaned it with gentle hands and put a bandage with cartoon animals on it. "There," she said warmly, "all better, you were very brave." The girl hugged her back. This was who she was. This was who she had always been. A kindergarten teacher, a gentle soul, someone who cried at sad movies and sang silly songs and believed that every child deserved love. The things she had done on Prime felt like a dream now, a dark dream from a different person. But the galaxy had not forgotten. Far across the stars, everything was changing. The footage from that night had spread to every corner of known space. Governments had tried to suppress it. They called it fake. They called it propaganda. They called it psychologically dangerous material that could cause panic. But everyone had seen it. Everyone knew. A single human woman, unarmed, unarmored, alone against 17 warriors with weapons and combat drugs and years of training. 43 seconds. Military academies began studying it. Scientists analyzed every frame. Philosophers debated what it meant. Everyone asked the same question. If this was what one human could do, what could all of them do? Trade negotiations with Earth suddenly became more friendly. Prices dropped. Offers improved. When human diplomats entered a room, conversations stopped. When human merchants made deals, no one tried to cheat them. On a dozen worlds, laws were quietly changed. Crimes against humans would now be punished much more severely, not because the aliens cared about justice, because they were afraid of what might happen if humans came looking for revenge. Returned to his job at the Commerce Guild, his colleagues treated him differently now. They were polite, respectful, almost nervous. One day his colleague approached him with a question, was tall and gentle, with the long face and soft eyes of her kind. She had worked with for over a year, but now she seemed almost afraid to speak to him. "Your sister," said carefully, "you told me she was a kindergarten teacher." "She is. And the things she did on that footage, that was basic training." Was quiet for a moment. He thought about Earth. He thought about the storms that could flatten cities, the oceans that could swallow ships, the animals with poison and claws and teeth. He thought about how his species had survived all of it, how they had climbed to the top of the food chain on a world that was always trying to kill them. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived a war and raised 7 children with nothing but hard work and will. He thought about his mother, who had once fought off a wild pig with a kitchen knife because it was threatening her garden. He thought about who had learned to fight because the world taught her she had to, and who had learned to be gentle because she chose to be. "No," said finally, "that was not basic training." Relaxed a little. "Good, I was worried." That was her being nice, finished. Stared at him, her gentle eyes went wide, her long face became very pale. She did not ask any more questions. On Prime, Commander was still alive. His body had healed, but something inside him was broken forever. He did not speak anymore. Not about that night, not about anything. When others asked him what happened, he just stared at them with empty eyes. When they pushed him to answer, he would sometimes open his mouth, but no words would come out. The other survivors were the same. 17 warriors reduced to silence. They could talk about other things. They could say hello and goodbye and please pass the salt. But when anyone mentioned the human woman, their voices simply stopped. Some people said it was shame. Some said it was fear. Some said it was something deeper, something that had been broken inside them that could never be fixed. The galaxy called it the Mute 17. And everyone understood the message. Humans gave warnings because they were merciful. They gave one warning, a chance to stop, a chance to walk away, a chance to be better. Those who ignored the warning got a second one. And the second warning was not made of words. Back on Earth, the sun was setting over small town. She was walking home from school, carrying her bag full of children's drawings. Some of them had drawn pictures of her. In the pictures, she was always smiling. She stopped at a small shop and bought some vegetables for dinner. The old woman who ran the shop asked about her trip to space. "It was interesting," said with a shy smile. "Very different from home, but I am glad to be back." "Did you see any aliens?" "A few." "Were they nice?" Thought about the gentle who had taught her card games. She thought about the beautiful lights and the strange flowers and the endless wonders of the galaxy. Then she thought about the 17 bodies on the floor. "Some of them were," she said softly, "and some of them learned to be." The old woman laughed and told her to take an extra carrot for free, thanked her and walked home. That night she sat by her window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was still talking about her, still afraid of her, still wondering what kind of monsters came from the cold Earth. Did not think about that. She thought about her students, about their small hands and big dreams, about the stories she would read them tomorrow and the songs they would sing together. She was not a monster. She was not a weapon. She was just a kindergarten teacher from trying to be kind in a universe that was not always kind back. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all. The stars twinkled in the darkness and smiled. Tomorrow was another day, another chance to be gentle, another chance to teach the universe that strength and kindness were not opposites. They were the same thing. They had always been the same thing. And the galaxy was only beginning to understand.